Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Netherlands. Hopefully, the connection is okay. First game of the day for Norwich City kicks off at midday, our time, 11 a.m. your time. Norwich City in action against Olympiacos to start the day. They then end the day with a game against ADO Den Haag. And Paddy Davitt has a team sheet in his hand, which he's going to wave in front of the camera. And he is going to list off the Norwich City team news. Over to you, Pat.
Thank you, Connor. Welcome. Good morning, everybody, wherever you are, to slightly gloomy, overcast.
What's this place called?
I did tweet it out earlier, so I'm not going to try.
I'll find it. You read it and I'll find it.
Well, here we go. This is more important. We go in a 4-2-3-1. At least that's how it'll start. I'm sure there'll be a lot of fluidity. But the lineup today for the first game is Louis Malden in goal. Right back Theo Adelusi, Rory McConville. Little bit of story on that. He's clashed heads with Josh Sargent yesterday. Apparently he's come off worse. He's got 3 or 4 stitches overnight. I think we might be going full Terry Butcher with the headband today. Sargent isn't involved in this group. Potentially involved later, but they're just monitoring in terms of maybe concussion through the day. But anyway, so McConville, captain nominally. Brad Hills, partnering him in centre-back. Batan Ozcan, a young man who's certainly seems to be catching the eye. Liam Manning at left-back. Defensive / holding midfield 2 of Anis Ben Slimani and Liam Gibbs. And then we have Emmy Marcondes in the middle of a 3, either side of Errol Mundell-Smith, LaShawn Seeley, 2 of the younger ones who seem to be getting quite good exposure on this trip in wider areas. And then at the top of the pitch, Oshka Swartau again. Do you want to roll off the subs, Connor?
Yeah, please do, yeah.
Subs today, Vicente Reyes, Matej Jurasek, Ken Abo, Luke Towler, Jaden Owen. We're basically into development players now. Hugo Valencia Gomez, Lloyd Afori, Mantau, Uriah Jeji and Damari Daly. Now, clearly with those names and the ones not listed, you can see that the thought process now will be that Den Haag will be more akin to the lineup we might see against Millwall in 2 weeks' time. So that's the split. That this is very much a mix and match, whereas tonight's lineup will feature more of the principals who are probably closer to Liam Manning's thinking for Millwall.
Yes, indeed. I am just writing that, that team news out. Okie dokie. Yeah. If anyone wants the Olympiacos team, I'm not going to read it out, but it is there. So pause and read. Those crosses are the starters. Those crosses are the subs. A bit of a mix and match team, in truth. They're out here for a couple of weeks, obviously preparing for their Greek Super League season, which doesn't begin until the end of August. So they've got quite a few games out here. They've already played NAC Bleda. They've got Alkmaar tomorrow. So similarly to what Norwich are doing today, really, just splitting their team up, just looking at different options as the as the league season gets a little bit closer for them. But they are in an earlier stage of pre-season than Norwich are, as we said right from the start. Really, this is in many ways their penultimate pre-season games today, which feels quite interesting to say, Paddy, doesn't it? When you think about the nature of these things, and pre-season creeps up slowly. Been out here for 10 days, and suddenly there's only next week to go now in terms of games. So that puts a big emphasis on, I guess, a lot of those players in that lineup and the lineup that we'll see later tonight playing a considerable number of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not Liam Manning, so we're not going to opine as if we're talking with the authority that he would give to this conversation. But I think it's a reasonable assumption. If I look down those 11 names, in each position, there's other elements in this squad who are further forward in his thinking for Millwall. I couldn't really see, obviously injury could intervene between now and Millwall, but no, I look down at 11. Marcondes maybe could come into his thinking for Millwall, but that doesn't look to me like players who are really in the front rank of the conversation for Millwall. But the reality is this is the next game for Norwich in pre-season, and it's another opportunity, particularly for the younger lads, to just nudge themselves forward again into that conversation. And then who knows, things can change and evolve quite quickly in pre-season. And as I say, you might pick up a fitness issue between now and then, and some of these lads who may be impressed in this sort of level of game today might find that they get in and around the squad for Millwall. So it's still an opportunity for these lads, particularly the younger ones. But if we're honest, I don't see any of these really, barring any injury issues between now and Millwall, being in the Millwall 11.
Yeah, let me just spin you around so you can see. We're basically on a balcony here, but there's the pitch in all its glory. You might be able to see some of the Norwich City goalkeepers out there. Probably not, because I can't turn that far, but they are out there conducting their warm-up. We've got a main stand there, which is full of quite a few yellow and green shirts, which is good to see. We've had some Norwich City songs played over the PA system here as well. And this is going to be an interesting test, Paddy, isn't it? For, like you say, predominantly, I guess those younger ones. And just to answer a question that was asked about captaincy, because it is on the team sheet, Rory McConville is the answer. Edzo, so he will lead Norwich City this afternoon. But again, just to reiterate how today will work, essentially, we're expecting, it will be a completely fresh 11 in that game against Den Haag later, which you get the sense, Paddy, from that team sheet, maybe more giving us a glimpse into where we are in terms of Liam Manning's thoughts for frontline options ahead of, obviously, the Championship kickoff in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, just to reiterate what I've just said, I mean, that very much is the case that... I think Brad Hills might just to give an idea of the intimacy of this location. I think Brad Hills has kicked that ball out of the stadium. But when I say out of the stadium, it's just gone over a bush. That's about 10 foot high behind the goal. So we might need a good system with the ball boys and girls here today. But I'll repeat what I just said. I mean, for me, we've said it on the spaces we did yesterday. I think we said it on the podcast at the Yellow Canary Cafe in downtown Rotterdam a couple of days ago when we were sort of prompted for our 11s. Not sure any of those names got a mention in our respective 11s. So, I think Den Haag is the one when we get to Den Haag later on tonight, and then we'll see those combinations. Kovakovic, Medic, Darling, Jacob Wright, maybe alongside Nunes. Forward areas. With that caveat around Sargent and this clash of heads he's had with McConville in training yesterday. If he actually plays tonight. And it is definitely a clash of heads. It's not a smoke screen, and he's en route to fill in the blank Premier League club. So, but as I say, this is the schedule. One that Liam has inherited. Probably wouldn't be of his making, but it is what it is. And I'm sure, pick a name out of this 11, Vatan Ozcan. Given they've brought in Schlupp now, and they've got obviously Mahovo and Kraseni. They look like they're better stocked now. Kenny McLean, we'll get an update on his fitness probably after tonight's game from Liam. But there's a young man who, straight after the Northampton game, the first behind closed doors game, Liam Manning name-checked him. He wasn't asked about him. He said that he was impressed with him. And here we are, 2 or 3 games later, and he's starting again today. So there's a young man who is making some moves. And as Liam said after Zulta, he spoke to the young group who finished the Volendam game, and he sat them down and he said, look, in my experience, there's always one who comes out of the pack in pre-season, younger player, and gets themselves in and around the first team group, and he's challenged them to, are you going to be the one? Well,
I was going to say on that point, do you feel Ozcan, Mundell-Smith, Sean Seeley, they feel like the three, don't they, who are really pushing their claim?
Well, absolutely. Just on the evidence of the minutes that they're getting. And now we're ticking away from pure fitness to actually the new season. And if that is the case, then, and you're starting games as a young player at this stage of pre-season, I'd say that bodes quite well.
Yes, let's speak about Matej Jurasek then, because he's on the bench today. From what we are led to believe, he will come on at half-time and play the second half of this fixture. But just on that, it's kind of an interesting one because you look at the names on the bench. Obviously, Reyes, maybe the exception. That's a very young bench, a development bench. That's how we expect the kind of teams to be split and kind of supplemented by development players. What do you make of Matej Jurasek starting on the bench today?
Well, maybe more to the point, starting or being involved in this game rather than Den Haag. I mean, that would signal that maybe he isn't quite got himself...
Liam said he had work to do, didn't he?
Well, that was my point I was going to make. That he started off with 20 minutes, didn't he, in the Northampton game? And I'm trying to scratch my head now. He played Volendam, didn't he? But was it 45 he got?
Yes.
So, he gets another 45 today. It's a player, and we all know the backstory since he came in. They've had to manage him physically in terms of his ability to adapt to the demands of English football, and that process is still ongoing. He had that minor hernia surgery at the start of the summer. So, a little bit like with Matthias Quistgaard, and, why take a risk? Particularly Jurasek and his backstory that he played less than 90 minutes of Championship football, since he came in back in January, Feb. So, I think we'll see that inclusion today on the bench here in this game as more of that process of just bringing him along to a point where, and it might even now be...
There's Rory McConville in his headband.
Yeah, it's not quite Terry Butcher.
Not quite, not far off.
Yeah, but for me, even if we get overhang and we're into the season, and it was like the first League Cup tie maybe at Watford that you're starting to see Jurasek start games, that makes more sense than, heaven forbid, you push him too hard at this stage, breaks down, and then, we're in another cycle of when is he going to be available. So, no risk to be taken with Matej today.
No Matej, Chris Gordon either in this 11. Obviously, we'll see what the 11 looks like later, but that's an interesting footnote as well. Out of the kind of senior ones that we're looking at, I guess Marcondes, Slimani, Gibbs, I mean, that feels, and again, what we say, it's always an opportunity to try and push themselves. Some of those guys, well, all of those guys, weren't they, were involved in the Zolta friendly last week. Yeah. I think it's just a rotation of trying to see a different defence midfield combination from Liam Manning, maybe, at this stage of pre-season.
Well, again, I mean...
No Shane Duffy either in this 11.
No, so, that would suggest that in terms of the pecking order of senior centre-backs, he probably is ahead of, stating the obvious, McConville and Hills, two of the younger element in the centre-back stocks that they've got. No, I mean, if I just zero in the two players he's got in front of the back four today, he's got Gibbs and Slimani. Tonight, won't prejudge, but it's probably going to be right, and it's probably going to be Nunes. There you go. So those two are behind those two, aren't they? So, and those two tonight will be in front of Darling and Medic, and behind them Kovakovic. That spine that's starting to come through now. Those combinations, those relationships. That tells me why we've now. This is for me the first definitive split, and almost the first definitive sign of where Liam Manning's going in terms of his squad thoughts. When you look at the group of players here in front of us today, and then the ones that we'll see later on at Den Haag.
Right, transfer-wise, I think there's been some news in the last half an hour. Not more, even more, honestly. Obviously had the splurge yesterday that Norwich made in terms of the two additions. Some signings number 8 and 9. I think NCFC numbers put out a good post about Norwich not doing that level of business before. Some fresh reports in Denmark within literally the last half an hour or so about Pelle Madsen, Pad. I think along the lines of an agreement is getting closer. I mean, that wouldn't be a shock given, I think, what we've reported for the last, goodness me, how long we've been reporting about Pelle Madsen? A long time.
Feels a long time.
But fair to say, it doesn't feel like anything's been agreed at this stage.
No, we've obviously subsequently, since those reports, which were in the last, not even an hour, was it? Last 35 minutes, we've checked them out. From the Norwich end of that, I mean, it's a very generalised report. There's nothing new information-wise in there. That figure is the figure that we've been told from the Norwich end that the Norwich feel it will take to get this deal done. Around about 2.6 sort of total package. So that's not new. Discussions are ongoing. Well, every time you ask the relevant people, they say we're still in for him. We're still pushing to do that deal. If it makes any odds in these dramas, Ben Napper is here, Neil Adams is here. So the key actors are here. Sat here now, that's not necessarily a signal either way, but I think it shows you that there isn't we're not in an end game off the back of that report. It's as you were. That very much is the message from the Norwich end in response to that report. Breakthroughs and done deals and player on his way. All of that is yet to get to that point. But is Pelle Madsen the centre midfielder they've identified? Yes. Is he one they've chased for a considerable while? Yes. Is there a sense in all the dialogue that's ongoing that his camp and his representatives would be receptive to a move to Norwich? Yes. So all I would say is all of that is what was the case with Jallow. He's in the building. It was the case with Quistgarden. He's in the building. So it feels like it's moving in the right direction. But as of here and now, sat here today, nothing more to report or add to those reports.
So there you go. What are you hoping to see, Paddy? I guess for these guys, it's got to be a chance to try and push themselves into that main pack, isn't it? And what do you think Liam Manning, I guess, would be looking for from those players out there today?
Well, what I would say is, twofold. The younger players too, and we've already discussed that. Ozcan, Seeley, Mundell Smith. Nudge him a bit further again in terms of, maybe not in the shorter term, but maybe later in the season. Could they be maturing enough to be in consideration? But maybe just focusing in on Gibbs, Slimani, Marcondes particularly, even McConville and Hills. Can those more established players exert some pressure on the ones we think are ahead of them in the pecking order? Because they're going to run out of opportunities swiftly. And then once the season's underway and there's a settled nature to the Norwich 11, if they're not in that, and Norwich get off to a good start as well, they might find their opportunities limited. So these are big games within the broader picture. You're Liam Gibbs. We'll take him as a case study. If he doesn't push himself forward now in these type of environments, you could conceivably see you get towards the end of the window, he's not playing, the championship season's up and running. Does he then need to go out and play loan football? So, for me, if you're Liam Manning, I guess he's looking for some nice conundrums from this group of players if he feels that the other group are slightly ahead.
Yep, just to run you through that Norwich team again, it is scrolling through down the bottom of your screen there. But Molden in goal, Adelusi, McConville, Hills, and Paddy's going to hold up the team sheet because I've forgotten who's right back. Who have I missed out?
You have missed out Adelusi.
Adelusi right back. Hills, McConville. Left back is Ozcan. Then Slimani and Gibbs. Monosmith and Seeley, Marcondes behind Oscar Schwartau. Subbench Vicente Reyes, Matej Jurosek, Canabo, Luke Towler, Jaden Owen, Hugo Valencia Gomez, Lloyd Fori, Manchu, Uriah Jeji, and Damari Daly. So there we go. And as we said, we will be doing another one of these later in the day. Norwich City playing Den Haag, 7 o'clock our time, 6 o'clock. That's right, isn't it? 6 o'clock their time. So we will be here, all being well, in and around 5 o'clock. But obviously, these things can be a little bit fluid, and we've got to get between 2 games. So hopefully, that will be the case. He is about to go to
Espanyol, we believe. He's in Spain, finalising a deal. So put a line through him.
Yeah, and then Lucas Serve, who was mentioned. I think when we checked that out, that was not one that was on their list. So I think we are basically clear that it is going to be Pelle Matson, most likely, but if not, then Topic. So we will see how that evolves in the coming day. I think Silke will play on Sunday, I've got in my head, so I'm sure we will get an inkling as to where things are at if he does play, doesn't play, and as Paddy said, there'll be press around that as well. So there we go. Pinker.com, the place to cover this game. We've got a live blog on the go. We won't be speaking to Liam Manning after this one. Again, similar to last week, we'll speak to him at the end of the second game against Den Haag. We'll be speaking to a player after this game, though, which will be interesting. So keep it locked to our channels for all of that coverage. And Paddy, got an excellent offer for the good folks out there.
Well, I've already tweeted about it this morning, Connor. But if you need any more convincing, today would be a good opportunity just to either this £3 for 3 months deal or £15 for the whole year's worth of content. You can't argue with that. But if you do need a bit of convincing, there's a shorter term deal. All the details pinned to the Pinkerton social media accounts. Jump on there now, and if you do that, they'll have your good self to guide them through the next 90 minutes or so, all the twists and turns. So who wouldn't want to spend the morning with you, Connor?
Quite a few people. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I won't ruin the sales pitch. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we will see you like this in this format later on today ahead of that second game against Den Haag. See you soon.